Hi everyone, it is March 29th and this is the AWS Nordics office hours. My name is Gunnar Grosch and I am a developer advocate here at AWS. And I'm going to take you through this hour of AWS knowledge sharing. And every week, as usual, I am joined by a guest, and this week is no different. I am joined this week by Jake Board. And Jake, you are a customer optimization and enablement specialist.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
that's a tough one. I'm used to just saying solutions architect or something like that. So welcome, Jake, to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So every week we have a guest on, we talk about a specific topic, and you, all of our reviewers, are able to then ask your questions, hopefully learn something new during this hour. So thanks everyone for joining us. So Jake, what does a customer optimization and enablement specialist do?
Good question. It's probably one of the most ambiguous terms in AWS, but the funny thing is we're probably one of the least technical teams. So basically we work directly with customers to help them optimize their costs and enable them to use AWS and move to AWS as efficiently as possible. So we tend to specify on more non-technical aspects of AWS like billing and cost management and cost optimization. And we just try to make that as easy as possible for customers as possible.
And that is the topic then for this hour, cost optimization and AWS billing.
Yep.
So where do we start? I think most of our viewers are familiar with AWS and AWS billing, but should we start straight away with the billing console to have a look at what we have there?
100%. I think definitely the best way is to jump straight into looking at the billing console and running through and seeing exactly what it looks like. So the AWS Billing Console is obviously available for all customers. There's no charge for it. It's not a service. It's just something that's included, and you can get there straight away from the AWS Management Console by visiting the billing link here. And then basically what we'll see on the billing and cost management dashboard is the initial home dashboard is just an overview of your billing and costs. But we'll see on the left there are obviously very different subjects that we can get into, different links that we can take to dive a little deeper into specific parts of the console. But when you're first greeted by the billing console, you just have a nice overview of your current costs. Over here on the right, obviously, we have the total month-to-date spend. So for this account, for my account, this is my spend so far in all of March. And then you have a quick breakdown down here of your most billed services from highest to lowest. And then we also have a brief forecast so you'll have previous month's usage here and costs, and then also a forecast for the end of the month, which obviously is only an extra 2 days for us now. But yeah, what we can look into now is going straight into the bills part of the billing and cost management dashboard, where we get to see the bills in a little more detail. So what we have on this is every month you'll receive, if you've opted into it, you can, every month by default, you will receive your AWS invoice on the bills part of the console. But you'll also receive a PDF invoice as well if you've opted into that, which we'll see later. But basically, this is a breakdown of your costs by month over each service. So if we go to, let's say, November 2020, we'll see that we have the invoices available here under here. We'll see for November 2020, on this account, we received 3 invoices. 2 were for a subscription charge and 1 was for the usage charge. So the usage charge here, this is your billing for your AWS service usage. So that any usage under here, so something like EC2 or RDS, CloudWatch, anything like that, any AWS service will be consolidated in this usage charge invoice here. And inside this invoice, there'll be a breakdown of these costs. The subscription charge invoices that we do see here, these are for subscription-based purchases. So this could be reserved instances or savings plans, something that you're subscribing to and then receiving an invoice for. So important just to note the difference between the usage charge invoices and the subscription charge invoices.
Would that also be a domain name, for instance? If you're purchasing domain names through
exactly,
routes,
yeah, anything. Yeah, exactly. So anything that's not under a direct usage service, that anything like that will be under the subscription charges here. And then there's also AWS Marketplace. So for AWS Marketplace purchases, you will also receive a separate invoice. So you can have a usage charge invoice, a subscription charge invoice for DNS or RIs or something like that. And then if you do make marketplace invoices, you will be receive a separate invoice for that as well. So they're the 3 kind of invoices. There used to be 4. You used to receive a tax invoice for your usage charge as well. But recently we've consolidated both the tax invoice and the usage charge invoice into one. So that makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
And then we'll also see under here, under the payment summary, you just have a quick breakdown, obviously, of these invoices here. And if you're confused about savings plans, we are going to go into this later on in the session. But if for your savings plans, you do also have a brief overview of the savings that you received for those. And then as you go down to the bill details by service, you'll obviously see a breakdown for each service and exactly how those costs were calculated. So perhaps the best one to go in to have a look for this is EC2. So we'll see as we click on the EC2, the original breakdown is per region. And then if we click into a specific region, so let's say London, then you get a breakdown of the costs, quite a granular breakdown of the costs. So you'll see that they are broken down into operating system as well. So here, for example, we have the EC2 running on Linux. And then you'll also have a breakdown of exactly what instance type that you were utilizing. So in this case, it was a T2 micro, and then you have the number of hours over the month that you utilized that instance. And again, you'll see here that you have the on-demand hourly rates. So best when we're talking about obviously EC2 instances, always thinking in terms of hourly costs, at least for like accounting and billing. So you have here the hourly on-demand rate for that instance, the number of hours, and then obviously the total amount that was billed for that.
So even though it is per hour, we were having decimals per hour. So the billing rate is lower than per hour.
Exactly. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you're not always billed for a full hour. If you utilize less than that, then you are billed. Yeah. Exactly. But in terms of just the breaking it down on the bill, we just keep this here for reference. And then obviously, if you'd used a partial EC2 compute hour, it will just be calculated in here. Right. But again, you'll see here we have, like you said, decimal hours here. So these are partial EC2 hours that were utilized for these specific instances. And then again, you'll also have a breakdown of things like EBS are also included in the EC2 costs under the billing structure. So you'll also have a breakdown of your EBS costs under that as well. And then it's the same thing for RDS. You'll see you have them broken down into region, and then for each region, you have the specific type of RDS instance you were utilizing, the number of full or partial hours that you utilized, and then the total cost for that. So I think next we'll go into the payments tab. With the payments tab, it's fairly straightforward. You just have 3 tabs. So we have the payments due tab. Luckily, we have no payments due at the moment, so that's good to see. With the payments due tab, you would have any invoices that haven't been paid or have been issued recently. So generally, invoices are issued between the 3rd and 6th of the month. So any AWS customers will see in the next week that they have their usage invoice for March will appear in here. Unapplied funds are anything like credits that you may have received or refunds or anything like that from AWS will appear in here. And then you can reach out to AWS support to have them applied to open invoices if they're applicable for that. And then a transactions tab is just a overview of any invoices that have been paid in the past. Just a little more easier to see, and then you can open up the invoices from here to view the information that we looked on the bills page. But the bills page information is exactly the same as what's posted in the invoice.
Right. So you mentioned that the dates are created between specific dates of the months. But
Yeah.
what about subscription-based or the billing that is subscription-based? Is that when you're ordering something, for instance, when you're ordering reserved instances or a domain name?
Yeah, so if we go back to the November billing structure again, we'll see that they were, so with the subscription charge, these obviously will be issued once they're purchased. So if you purchase an RI, with RIs, they do have to be manually checked by the team, but you'll be invoiced for the start of the RIs or the SPs or any subscription-based model. That subscription invoice will be submitted once it's been purchased. Yeah.
Right.
But generally, the usage invoices, a good rule of thumb is all around the 5th of the month they will be issued on average. And then we looked at the payment tab, which was just a brief overview of the payments that are available. And then if we go into we also have nothing too exciting in these, but again, the credits tab, if you do receive any credits, they will be placed in there. And the purchase order tab, if you want to assign a purchase order number to your AWS invoice, then we can go in here and you'll be able to create a specific purchase order and assign it over a term, and then that will be placed on your AWS invoice if that's something that your accounting department is requiring. And then on the billing preferences, we have more options on how to modify certain billing preferences. So we have the receive PDF invoice by email. So if you aren't receiving your AWS invoice via email and you're wondering why this is, then you just need to go in here and select this. And then what you'll receive is every month you'll receive that via an email. Usually the root user email that on your AWS account is the one you'll receive it to. But you can add additional emails to receive it in the payment methods section over here. So if you find that you aren't receiving it, you just need to select it here. And then in the payment methods, there is an option to add additional emails to receive a PDF invoice too. But by default, you'll always receive your invoice on the bills section of the AWS Billing Console.
So if we have viewers now that think that, well, I've never even seen the billing console, that is not uncommon either, because
Yes.
you're able to set permissions for who's able to access the billing console.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're able to say IAM user access for this, and also it's something that can be looked over when you're busy, controlling your environment and everything. It's easy to look over the AWS Billing Console, but once you get onto it, it's very simple. Just to a lot of it is just you need to enable these. They're not enabled by default, so you can just click on them, and then that will be available to you. Again, there's also the ability to disable credit sharing. So if you have certain accounts that you don't want to share credits to, if you only want them to apply to, if you have an AWS organization, for example, so you have a payer account and multiple linked accounts underneath it, you can disable credit sharing here, so it's only applied to a single AWS account. And then we also have RI and savings plan discount sharing. Again, we'll get into RIs and savings plans a bit later, but if you want to disable the RI and savings plans from applying to specific AWS accounts, then you can just select the accounts here and move them over to the disabled section, and then only the accounts in the enabled section will be receiving the benefits via reserved instances and savings plans.
Right.
And then again, we have some cost management preferences down here. You have free tier usage alerts. So if you are utilizing AWS free tier, whether that's for EC2 or RDS or any of the applicable free tier services, then you can place an email address in here as well. And when you're getting close to the limit of your free tier usage, you'll be notified, so you don't spin up any unnecessary costs, and you don't get a surprise at the beginning of the month when you've been billed for some services. So that's available here as well. And then you're also able to, I believe this one is selected by default, but as we'll see later, you can set up budgets, and you can be alerted about these budgets when you reach a certain limit. So this one here is just to select opt into receiving budgets, but we'll look up how to set up those reports later.
Right. So if you just joined us now, this is the AWS Nordics office hours. I'm joined by Jake Board today. We're talking about AWS billing and cost optimization. We've started by looking at the AWS Billing Console. We'll get to a lot of the cost optimization and so on further down the session. If you have questions, post them in the chat. We do have some questions. Maybe we should jump into at least one of them right now, which is a question that I don't think we'll be able to answer. The question is, how much is it for early development and prototyping using AWS for hosting servers? And that is the type of question that's hard to answer without knowing specifics. Well, the usual answer there is it depends. It depends on what you're running, what type of services you're using. But all of the costs, all of the pricing for the services, they are available using the product pages. But then you'll be able to track the cost by using different services, different tools that we'll go through during this session. Right, Jake?
Exactly, yeah. And we provide all the pricing. Public pricing is available for all our services online, but we also have the AWS calculator, where if you know how much you're going to be utilizing and for which specific service, you can just go onto the AWS calculator, plug in the information, and then it will quote you a price for that. So that's also a service that can be used for that as well.
Yeah, I can post a link to that in the chat as well.
Which we actually updated it, I think, a couple of months ago. So it's a new one as well. So it's even better than the old one. So I definitely would recommend using that.
I'll just find the link and post that there. All right, Jake, anything else in the billing console?
Yeah, just a couple of things. We'll go through the consolidated billing. So we did talk about AWS organizations very briefly. And basically, this is the overview of AWS organizations. So if you don't know what it is, AWS organization allows you to assign a AWS account as a master payer. And then link other AWS accounts to that master payer. Now, the main reason that you might want to do that is to benefit from something we call consolidated billing. And with consolidated billing, you basically receive a centralized single invoice for all of your AWS accounts. So if you have, let's say, an AWS account structure with 10 accounts, and you don't want to receive 10 separate AWS invoices for all these accounts, you can assign a specific AWS account as a master payer. And you'll see this one denoted here as the master payer with the star next to it. And then you can link all your other accounts to this master payer. And then what will happen is, as we go through the Cost Explorer, we'll see that all that data is consolidated, and it's much easier to look through. And then you'll also receive a consolidated invoice when you are billed for your service usage for that. So you won't have to be managing multiple invoices for multiple accounts. They'll all be consolidated into one. And then there's also a breakdown for that in the bills section that we looked at previously. So this is the AWS organization part of the billing Cost Explorer. And we'll see that you can organize the accounts over here. You can actually create something called organizational units inside AWS organizations. And these units basically allow you to group accounts together. And then assign policies to the organizational units, which will cover all of the accounts inside that. So you don't have to assign specific and individual policies to each and every linked account. If you have a group of accounts, usually let's say test or development, you can set up a development operational unit. You can place your development accounts into that operational unit and then set the policies that you wish for those accounts to have. So you can have as many organizational units as you want within an AWS organization. You can have organizational units within organizational units if that's what you need. But yeah, this is something that's available. But the main reason for it is the consolidated billing aspect. So having all of your invoices in one invoice and in one place. And yeah, so you'll see here that you can add accounts here from it. So basically, if you want to add a linked account to an existing organization, you can do that here. That will send an email invitation to the root user of the other account, and then you can select that to join the AWS organization from that invitation, and then it will be placed within this AWS organization here. And then it can benefit from the consolidated billing and the operational units and some more sort of consolidated data that we'll look at later. Brilliant. And then there was just one more recommendation from my end. If you are running a AWS organization with sort of multiple accounts and you're wondering why you are receiving individual invoices, so there is a reason for this. Even if you have an AWS organization, you can still be receiving invoices for each individual linked account. And then that may be because in the tax settings tab that we have here, you have the option to add a tax registration number to each linked account. And the invoices are actually, so accounts are separated based off the tax registration number. So if you have 10 accounts and they all have the same tax registration number, then you will receive one AWS invoice. But let's say you have 9 AWS accounts with the same tax registration number and one AWS account with a different tax registration number, then you will receive a separate invoice for the different tax registration number. So just important, if you do have this multi-account AWS organization setup, just important to look in your tax settings and make sure they all do have the same tax registration number, just so you are receiving that one consolidated invoice.
Right. Yeah, that's a good tip when working with multiple AWS accounts in organizations.
Brilliant. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover through the billing console. I think we'll dive straight into the AWS Cost Explorer now. Which is really a great tool for monitoring your costs, and it gives you a lot more granularity and overview than your AWS Invoice does. So similar to the billing console, we have the homepage that gives a brief overview of your current month costs, your forecasted costs, and then a daily view over the last month. So we can just go straight over to the Cost Explorer tab here and open it up. And what we'll see here is we have lots of filters and group by options in order to pull the correct data that we want. So we'll see that since November 2020, when this account was opened, we have an overview of our 5 highest costs over here. So in this account, we'll see that we have EC2 instances, RDS usage, some EC2 other, which we'll go over in a minute, as well as QuickSight and guard duty. So we can apply certain filters and group by options in order to pull the data we want. So let's see, we want to look at our highest cost service, which is EC2, and see exactly where these costs are coming from. We can go over to the filter option here on service and filter by EC2 instances. And then we can group by, let's say, linked account. So because we are on the payer right now. So if you had multiple linked accounts in an AWS organization, you would be able to group by linked account, and then you would be able to see exactly how much each linked account is costing you and how much it's utilizing over here. We can also go over to region and see what regions we are utilizing the most EC2 compute usage in, as well as instance type, and see, okay, exactly which instance types are costing us the most, and exactly where these costs are coming from. So the Cost Explorer gives you a really good view of that. Perhaps we just want to look at the current month's usage. We can do that over here by just changing from month to date or selecting a custom filter. At the moment, it's only the 29th, but we can select the 31st as well. And then the final 2 days will be forecasted for us. So we'll see that this is our actual usage right now. And then we have a forecasted usage over here for the last 2 days of the month that we haven't utilized yet. And then a useful option for EC2, if you want to look exactly how many hours you're utilizing as well, we can go on to EC2 instances, and then we can group by usage type. And then we can select EC2 running hours. And we'll see with the EC2 running hours, we get obviously the cost that we're utilizing, and we also get exactly how many hours that we used this month as well. So if we just take it back to the current usage, and then we go by instance type, and we'll take it on line. I'll put it on bar, sorry. Then we can see exactly how much over the last month that we've utilized in terms of cost and usage hours. So we'll see as we get to some of the instances with a lower hourly rate, we'll see that, for example, the T2 Nano, while we've utilized the most hours at the T2 Nano, is actually one of the lowest costs, and that would be due to it just being a cheaper hourly instance compared to, let's say, the T3 Medium. So this really gives us an overview of hours and costs applied to EC2. We can also group this by purchase option. Now, purchase option with EC2 instances, there are a number of ways that you can purchase them. You can purchase them on demand, which is the default option where you'll build an hourly rate, an hourly on-demand rate for the EC2 instance usage. There is spot. Now, spot instances are unused EC2 capacity that can offer discounts up to around 85 and 90% over on-demand costs. Now, spot instances are great for time-flexible workloads, but they can be interrupted. You do receive, because they are just unused EC2 capacity, if that capacity needs to be used, then these instances can be interrupted with 2 minutes notice. So you'll receive a 2-minute notification that this instance is going to be interrupted and switch back to on-demand. Yeah, so that's what spot instances are. But again, these are best used for for time flexible workloads where if they're interrupted, there is no issue. But that's what spot instances are. And then we also have savings plans and reserved instances, which we'll go through in a lot more detail in a bit. But they are basically some of the subscription-based models that we talked about earlier that you receive in your invoice. Savings plans and reserved instances are a subscription-based model, pricing model for EC2, where you can subscribe to a 1 or 3 year term, and in exchange you'll receive a lower hourly rate than the on-demand rate. So this is what the purchase option is showing us here. We can.
Yeah, I can see in the filters that you have an option for filtering on tag as well. Tag is something that's, it is best practice to use tagging on all of your resources. We have a question around tagging, which I think we can bring up now. Kaushik is asking how granular do the AWS tags get, and what is their initiation time, the time it starts to track the tag when you've added it onto a service?
But I'm not entirely sure about the tags. The granularity should be daily or hourly. I think the granularity is hourly with tags. In terms of the initiation time, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if you are aware, Gunnar, but in terms of granularity, it's hourly is the granularity. Right.
But they should start picking them up fairly quickly is what I've seen myself. I don't know the exact initiation time, but I've seen it started picking up new tags fairly quickly in the Cost Explorer.
Exactly, yeah. And you'll see here that we do have hourly granularity available as an option on the Cost Explorer as well. So if you want to look at perhaps just today, have a look at yesterday, then you do have annually granularity available for that as well. And again, you can do that not just with EC2, you can do it with any AWS service. So you'll see the similar options for RDS here, where you can go through and have a look exactly what linked accounts are utilizing the spends. If we look at instance type, we can see exactly here. So this is all, however granular you want to go or however deep you want to look into it, the information is available. And you just need to select the right filters. Something that you can do so you don't have to go through this whole ordeal of selecting filters and instance types is that you can actually create reports which you can save. So if we go onto the report tab here, we'll see that we have a list of so the ones with locks are reports that are default in the Cost Explorer. And then we also have other reports that we've created here. So you can click on create a new report here. And then, for example, we'll go with a cost and usage report. And what we want to see is a cost and usage report we want to create a cost and usage report for RDS. That's going to show the amount we spent per instance and then the running hours for that. So we can just go down to RDS in the service over here. We'll do it for the last 3 months. We can select instance type here. We're going to usage type group and we'll put in RDS running hours. And now we have a report here which shows us the cost and usage in hours of RDS grouped by instance type over the past 3 months. And then we can just save that up here as RDS cost and usage. And then we'll be able to save that report. And then when we come back into the Cost Explorer in a couple of days time or a couple of weeks time or however long it is, you can just see on the recent reports here that you'll have the RDS cost and usage report, and then you'll be able to load it without having to manually select these filters and these group by options again. So you can set up as many reports as you like.
And these are saved at the account level, so they're not personal, the user level reports. So if I'm creating one, it's for my account.
Correct. Yeah. They're saved on the account level.
Yes.
But again, if you're running an AWS organization, then they will be saved on the payer level and distributed. They'll be available on all of your linked accounts as well.
Right.
And again, if we had multiple accounts, if you did have multiple accounts and they weren't linked to a organization, then this data would only be available. You'd have to log into each linked account to get the data available. Whereas if you were utilizing an AWS organization, you can just filter by specific linked account here. And you'll be able to get all that information on the payer level by logging into the payer without having to log into each linked account to get that information. So another upside of AWS organizations. Brilliant. So we've gone through the Cost Explorer and the report function as well. So the next thing I want to go through, and that's something that we've mentioned a couple of times, is savings plans and reserved instances. Can
I just throw in a question before we move there? We have a question from Pubudu about a very specific cost question. That is a requester pays feature in S3. Do you know how that works, Jake?
I do not, unfortunately, no. But it's definitely something that we can look into and get back to you about. So do we have a way to do that?
We can for sure. If Pubudu, if you're able to perhaps contact me on either LinkedIn or Twitter, feel free to do that, and we can get back to you. I can post a link at least right now for the documentation about requester pays, and we can get back to you with more details if you wish. So this is from the documentation, but it's a feature in S3 that allows you to have the requester of the object in the S3 bucket to pay for that instead of the normal way, which is that the account where the bucket is hosted would pay for it. All right. So now savings.
Savings, yes, the best part. It's when we went through my role originally, one of the main things we get to do is help customers actually save on AWS, and that's through the purchase of savings plans and reserved instances. So I'll just bring up this here. So basically, when you purchase an RDS or an EC2 instance and start utilizing it, you are by default billed at a hourly on-demand rate. So every single instance type or every single instance, depending on its region, the purchase option, exactly what the instance type is, has an hourly on-demand rate assigned to it. And that's what you're charged for when you run a partial or a full hour of that service. So initially, when AWS was first launched, we had EC2 on demand was the only sort of purchase option that we had available. So EC2 on demand is still a great option for short-term and spiky, unpredictable workloads. And it's still low cost and flexible. You can turn off the instances when you want, spin up a new instance. We have partial hours. So if you're not utilizing the instance for the entire hour, you're not charged for the entire hour. You're just charged for the percentage of the hour that you used. Then we added EC2 reserved instances a few years later. And basically, reserved instances offer you a lower hourly rate for EC2 instances in exchange for a 1 or 3 year term commitment. So you could choose to purchase a T2 Nano reserved instance in a specific region over a 1 year term. And then in exchange for that commitment of that instance over a 1 year term, you receive a lower hourly rate than the on-demand rate for that specific instance. So RIs were released. They were sort of the first form of cost optimization for EC2 released. In 2012, we released the RI Marketplace, where you can actually sell reserved instances. In 2016, regional RIs were released. And as well as convertible RIs. So convertible RIs allow you to actually switch the instance type of your reserved instance that you purchased if you find that you no longer need to utilize that specific instance type. And then in 2017, we released instance size flexibility. So reserved instances can save you up to 70% over on-demand prices. So it's a significant saving for them. They're available in 1 or 3 year terms, and they are best for steady state usage. There are different options of cost optimization that you would use for different workloads. But RIs are mainly recommended for steady state usage that you know you're going to be utilizing for every hour over the next 1 or 3 years, depending on the term. If you have workloads that you perhaps need to switch on and off, or workloads that you're maybe going to need to switch to a different instance family or class in the upcoming year, then it's still recommended to utilize on demand for those, so you have that flexibility available. And then most recently, at the end of 2019, we released savings plans. Now, savings plans are kind of the successor to RIs for EC2 cost optimization. That's how I see it, at least. Savings plans work very, very similar to RIs in the sense that you subscribe to a specific instance family for a 1 or 3 year term, and you receive a lower hourly rate. But they do offer higher flexibility than reserved instances do. So with savings plans, you get the exact same savings and exact same hourly rates as RIs. But you do, as we see on the next slide, you do get added flexibility. So with savings plans, you're committing, instead of committing to specific instance types in specific regions, you're going to commit to a dollar amount per hour. So obviously we've seen a lot of graphs with hourly costs and monthly costs, but when we talk about savings plans, it's really important to think about how much you're spending on your EC2 compute every hour, because that's how it's billed. You would commit to an hourly rate of usage. So let's say your total EC2 compute usage is, let's say $10, equates to $10 per hour. If you were to purchase a $5 per hour savings plan, you would receive the lower hourly rates up to that $5 limit, and then any remaining, the remaining $5 of your EC2 compute would be billed on the on-demand rate. And we'll see on the next page exactly the two different types of savings plans that we have. Now with compute savings plans, we have the greatest flexibility. compute savings plans are similar to, they're kind of the successor, the equivalent of convertible reserved instances. So with compute savings plans, what's great about them is when you purchase a compute savings plan, you only have to specify how many dollars per hour you want to commit to. You don't have to specify a specific instance family or a specific region or anything like that. You would just say, I want to commit to $5 per hour, and then you receive the discounted rate up to those $5 per hour. And they also apply to any Fargate or Lambda usage. So if you are utilizing Fargate or Lambda, then you will receive the discounted rate for those as well, which RIs didn't previously do. But with savings plans, another great reason to purchase them is that they apply to Lambda and Fargate. And then we also have the EC2 instance savings plan. Again, this is closer to the standard reserved instance. And with the EC2 instance savings plan, the savings percentages are slightly lower, and that's because of the less flexible that they are. So with the EC2 savings plans, you have to specify the same as the compute. You specify a dollar amount per hour that you want to commit to over the 1 or 3 year term. But you do also have to specify an instance family and a specific region. So an EC2 instance savings plan purchase may look like $5 an hour in the M5 family in EU West 1. And then any usage that you have in the M5 family in EU West 1 up to that dollar amount per hour will be, you'll receive the lower on-demand rate, and then the remaining amount will be billed on on-demand. So another way to look at this is like this. If this is your total EC2 spend, and you purchase a $10 per hour savings plan, then you'll receive the lower hourly rates here up to the $10 per hour, and then any excess will be billed on the hourly on-demand rate there. So maybe best now to go over to the console again, and what we can actually have a look at is the recommendations page for savings plans. So to help you put together an initial purchase for savings plans, you do have this recommendation page available. So basically how the recommendation page works, based on the parameters that you set over here, so we'll go 30 days. What it's doing is it's taking your on-demand, it's taking your EC2 usage, on-demand EC2 usage from the past 30 days, and then it's giving you the amount that you actually spent. So on this account, I spent $138 over the past 30 days on on-demand EC2 compute usage, which equates to 19 cents per hour. And then what it gives you is it calculates what you would have spent over the past 30 days if you had a savings plan to cover all of that usage. So we can say here, if I had a compute savings plan to cover this on-demand usage over the past 30 days, I would have actually spent $100 over the month, or 14 cents per hour. And then the estimated monthly savings is obviously the difference between these two numbers. So this tool is just taking the past usage and then applying the lower hourly rate for the savings plan here. And then that's how that's calculated. So we can see that the different options that affect the savings that you're receiving for a savings plan are the term length, the payment option, and as well as which savings plan option that you want to select. So the compute savings plan offers the greatest flexibility. All you have to specify is how many dollars that you want to commit to. You don't have to specify instances or regions. It automatically applies to any instance in any region. So for the compute savings plan, we can see down here what the average savings percentage is to cover my on-demand workloads. And then if we switch to the EC2 instance savings plan, so this is the option where we do have to select specific region and family. We'll see that we have this down here. So if we were running multiple instance families in multiple regions, we would see more options down here for each region and each instance family. And it would be broken down into exactly what the commitment is, and then the estimated savings for that instance family.
So are you able to mix these so you can use both savings plans?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the great thing about savings plans is that you can mix and you can even mix and match them with RIs if you like. So the way that they would apply is Say you have say you want the added flexibility of compute savings plans. So you don't want to maybe over the next year, a new generation of, maybe you're utilizing the M5 and the M6 you're aware the M6 is going to come out in the next year, and you want to start utilizing the M6 when it comes out. You can purchase a compute savings plan to cover those M5 workloads. And then when the M6 comes out, or a new generation comes out, you can switch straight to that M6 workload, and then these compute savings plan will be automatically applied. The other choice is that you want to maximize savings for a specific instance family. So let's say I have some T3 and some M5 usage. I know over the next year that I'm going to be utilizing this level of T3 usage. So I want to maximize the savings that I'm getting. So for this T3 instance, I can purchase an EC2 instance savings plan just to apply to this family. And then I'm maximizing the savings for that. And any other further usage, I can purchase a compute savings plan for to maximize flexibility. So it depends basically on everyone's environment and what their needs are. But you can always, in order to maximize flexibility and savings, you can always mix and match between the compute and the EC2 instance savings plans options. And again, you can purchase over a 1 or 3 year term. We'll see if we select the 3 year term, the savings go up significantly. Obviously, it's a longer commitment, but with the compute savings plan, because you have full flexibility to move between instances, between families, between regions, it's fairly confident. You can feel fairly confident purchasing a 3 year compute savings plan, as long as you set a hourly purchase limit to an amount that you know you're going to be utilizing. Then I think the compute savings plan on a 3 year term is a good option, definitely due to that flexibility.
Cool.
And again, we'll see that the purchase options here also affect. So we have 3 purchase options here that affect the savings that you receive for a savings plan. You have the all upfront option. So with the all upfront option, we looked at a subscription invoice earlier at the beginning of the stream. If you purchased an all upfront savings plan, then you would receive a subscription invoice for the full amount over the year. With the partial upfront option, you are billed for 50% of the all upfront amount of the savings plan, and then the remaining 50% is billed in monthly equal installments. And then if you also have the no upfront option, with the no upfront option, you're basically billed exactly the same as on demand. So you're just billed for this amount every month, but you're still receiving that lower hourly rate instead of the on demand rate.
So a question on that then from Kartik. How can you mix RI and savings plans? What are best practices?
Yeah, exactly. So if let's say you're mixing all 3 options. So let's say you have some RIs, some compute savings plans, and some EC2 instance savings plans. So the way that they would apply is reserved instances would apply first because they are the least flexible. Because you're locked into a specific instance type even in a specific availability zone, the RIs would apply first then. Then the EC2 instance plans, if there was additional on-demand available, the EC2 instance savings plans would apply then. And then because the compute savings plans are the most flexible, any additional on-demand, these compute savings plans would then be applied. So in terms of best practices, I think RIs are a great option, but I think in terms for EC2 workloads, it's best just to stick for savings plans. If you do have reserved instances that you've had previously, then I think as these reserved instances begin to expire, you should be looking into renewing those with savings plans purchases, because again, you're getting the exact same discounted rate and you're receiving the exact same savings, but you're just getting the added flexibility of the EC2 or the compute savings plan option. So as a best practice, This recommendation tool here does take current RI and savings plan purchases into consideration. So it is only showing you what's currently on demand. So as a best practice, I would just use this recommendation tool if you're looking at making future purchases. And as your EC2 RIs are expiring, look into renewing them with savings plans.
To put you on the spot then, is there ever a situation where you recommend RIs to anyone now?
Yeah, I have this discussion with customers a lot, and honestly, no. I see savings plans slowly phasing EC2 RIs out, and they really have begun since they were released in 2019. Savings plans really have begun phasing RIs out. So there isn't a situation where I see purchasing an EC2 RI above an EC2 savings plan. So yeah, as a best practice, if you do have RIs remaining when they expire, just look at purchasing a savings plan instead of a reserved instance.
Cool. All right, approaching the last 10 minutes, Jake.
Yes.
What else do you have for us?
I think the best thing to go into next, seeing as we're talking about best practices and savings plans, would be the utilization and coverage reports. So these are two reports that you have available to you in the Cost Explorer. And basically, if we start with the utilization report, what the utilization report shows you is that once you purchase a savings plan, it will show you exactly what percentage of that savings plan is being utilized. So we'll see here that we have a very small purchase on this account, but we'll see at the moment it is being utilized 100%. This means that if we had an underutilized savings plan, it would mean that it isn't being fully used. So, for example, if we purchased a savings plan and then our usage dropped over the next month or next couple of days below this threshold that we were talking about earlier, we'd see that this utilization would drop to perhaps, I don't know, 90 or 85%, whatever the utilization this means. And this means that we're not fully utilizing the savings plan. So if you ever see that you have a savings plan and it's not being fully utilized, for example, if we had an EC2 instance savings plan and it wasn't being fully utilized, you could choose to move more of your workloads over to instance types or instance families that match that savings plan in order to fully utilize the savings that you had purchased. So again, with savings plans, when you purchase, you are billed at the discounted hourly rate every hour for the 1 or 3 year term. So even if you're not using that specific instance family, you will still be billed at the savings plan rate every hour. And then this is one of the sort of best practice for savings plans, is that you just commit to an amount that you know you're going to utilize. So you can just use this. This is a tool perhaps that you can use every couple of weeks. You can just come on here, look at your savings plans utilization tool, see if they're being underutilized. If they are, then you can move some workloads over, if that's possible, to fully utilize that savings plan, so you're getting the exact savings that you should be receiving. So this really just a best practice to have a look at this every now and then, set up some time, and make sure that your savings plans are being fully utilized.
Can you set up IAM users that are able to view these types of reports without having access to other parts of the billing console?
You can, yeah, exactly. So you can set up IAM users for the Cost Explorer, but you can choose not to allow them access to perhaps the invoice structure or the tax settings, or not to be able to purchase savings plans. You can set up users that just allow them to utilize the utilization and coverage reports, yeah. So that you could set up an IAM user just for them to view these when applicable.
Cool. Cost-driven development, cost-driven architecture. That's
exactly
topics that we haven't talked about enough, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we shoot for. That's what we go for.
Yeah.
And then the other report that we have is the coverage report. And so basically, what the coverage report shows you, it shows you how much of your current on-demand environment is being covered by savings plans. So we'll see on this account, we have a very small test compute SP purchase of $1. So we'll see that at the moment, this is covering, around 1% of our workload. So this is If you're looking into initial cost optimization for your EC2 workloads, this really gives you a good overview a very quick overview of what savings can be available to you. So you can see right now for this account, we only have about 1% of my on-demand covered over here, and it also gives you a brief overview of exactly what the potential monthly savings are, and also what your current on-demand spend is. That is not covered. So you can take a look at this coverage report right now. If you have an AWS account and you're looking initially into cost optimization, I would recommend that you jump straight over to the Cost Explorer. You open up the savings plans coverage report, and you have a look at exactly what savings are available to you right now. Again, it isn't something where you need to. We have no upfront payment options for savings plans as well. So if that's something that you want to do, you can go ahead and provide a no upfront payment option, and you'll basically be billed exactly as you are being billed now. But just you're going to be getting that lower hourly savings plan rate. So I think this is even if you have looked into cost optimization and you have perhaps 40% coverage from savings plans already, you can really see here exactly how much more is available. But for everyone who's initially looking into cost optimization, I think this is probably the first place to go. This or the recommendations tool are the first places to go, just to get an overview of exactly what savings are available to you.
Right, that's great. So we had a question, Jake, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to put it to you anyway, from Pubudu. Is there a way to restrict spinning up new resources based on the cost, like setting account limits?
There are AWS budgets. So I'll go through this very, very quickly. I know we've only got 5 minutes left. So what you can do with AWS budgets is you can set notifications. So for example, if you can set up a cost budget over here. So if we go into the create a budget and we select the cost budget, you can actually set up a budget for how much you want to be. This isn't so much a restriction. I think Gunnar has the answer to that. But in terms of a notification, you can set up notification for costs. So for example, if you've set a limit for $200 for your EC2 spend per month, then you can set up a budget over here. You can filter by service, EC2 instance compute here. Set your limit to $200, and then we'll put it over here. So set it to $200, set it to a fixed. We'll name it EC2 quickly, and then you can create this budget. So and set the threshold to 100%. So if your EC2 costs for the month get within $200, you can receive an email or an SNS notification letting you know that. So you don't need to be manually checking the Cost Explorer all the time. You can just set up budgets. But Gunnar, I think you probably have more information on the actual in regards to setting up.
Yeah, no, but this is the way that most people tend to use it, as a way to get notifications that you're reaching the limit, because very few really want to have a hard limit, something that means that instances would basically stop if you run over limit. So there are ways of building that yourself based on these notifications, but it's really not something that I think anyone else would recommend, because it might mean that services get stopped in production systems.
Yeah, and I think the budgets is just a good way to be proactive and stay ahead of the curve, rather than having to manually check the Cost Explorer all the time to see if your costs are if you're going above your allocated costs. You can just set up multiple budgets for services, even for specific linked accounts, for specific instance types. You can set SNS notifications, so you can subscribe to perhaps a Slack channel, and you'll even receive the notification to a Slack channel. If that's something that we want to do. So budgets is just a really good option to be proactive and stay ahead of the curve with your costs, without having to manually check the Cost Explorer every 2 days or a week, or whatever you want to set that to. So yeah, I think budgets are really good for that. So that's definitely something to play around with and have a look in, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, having developers, architects, builders that are aware of what things costs and the costs they're driving. I think that's really good in any type of team or organization. All right, the last minute. So, Jake, any final words for the viewers?
No, not at all. We went through a lot. I think I managed to get through most of what I wanted to go through. So just thanks everyone for watching. Very much appreciate it. It was great to be on, and I really enjoyed it actually. And it was good to share some knowledge around billing and cost optimization.
Yeah, and if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Jake on LinkedIn or Twitter. We'll be happy to help answer your questions. So with that, thank you very much for this week, everyone. Next Monday is Easter holidays, so no show that week, but we'll get back to you in 2 weeks' time. So with that, happy holidays, everyone.
Awesome. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.